This is Megazord, and this is supposed to be the bug queen fight in Fortnite.
Except she never showed up.
A bug in the game, so I brought back our hand puppet bug queen to face him instead. But to make this battle happen,
We need the stage, the Hive.
today we're sculpting the entire Hive map, glowing Slurpy lake, bomber bugs, swarmers, and even the tiniest peely you've ever seen. And when the map is finished, the fight begins. We start with a printout of the Hive map, and we're going to cut it down to the exact size we need, deciding which parts to leave in and which to leave out. The ground is a mixture of some beige, a tiny bit of chocolate brown until we get this beautiful sandy color, which we are now rolling out until we've got 5mm of thickness. Today's project is a teamwork. Crystal is working on the Hive map, while I found these minifigures when I tidied up the studio. I think we will put them to use by putting one of them into a Peely costume. He's been in so many of my videos already, and Epic even put him in the Retro Power Rangers trailer. In the past, I have created maps. I always left out characters because they were too tiny. Now with these minifigures, which I found, we have an easy way to create the tiniest peely I've ever made. How adorable is that? Such a tiny peely, and I want to put him onto the map. Maybe he is still too big, but we will find out. Now, while I'm working on the tiny peely costume, Crystal is continuing the work on the map itself. For the mountains, we use the whole tool set. Scrapping, shaping, even the eye-pointing tool. And just a short reminder, you still get 25% off in September on ClayClaim.com on all tools. So check it out. With this scalpel we can mark the contour of each and every mountain and now cut them out from an extra layer of sandy beige and placing it on top of our location, building more hills and even more hills. This is the tiniest peely ever. Let's give him some fresh yellow arms and legs. There is probably better color, but I'm using just regular acrylic paint. It matches the lemon yellow clay color perfectly. And now with these brown tiny dots, he looks so characteristic. Now let's give him a weapon. We choose one of these soldiers, this one. We are going to pickpocket the MG for Peely. With the super glue we make sure he never loses this MG and he's ready for the fight. Ready to conquer a Fortnite island, a tiny one. If you have an idea for the next project, please leave it down in the comments. Which Fortnite location, boss or crossover should we bring to life in Clay next? Here is a detail I love. The grass isn't normal green. It's got this turquoise tint. My guess, the bugs mixed slurp with earth. And now all the plants around the hive glow like they've been infected. Super cool. Now let's take a closer look at the vegetation in the hive. You'll notice the grass and trees mainly grow on the upper hills. My guess, up there the ground gets more light and maybe even more slurp energy, so the plants can survive. But in the lower parts, in between those hills, where the earth cracked open, there is almost no vegetation, just bare ground, rocks and those ochre-colored patches where nothing grows. Maybe the bugs drained all the life down there. This tiny bald spot with ochre clay looks like the earth has been eaten away by the infestation. And this tiny cave, one of my favorite spots on the map, an awesome location for hiding. In the middle of the Hive map, we've got the most mysterious part. The glowing Slurpy lake. It's not just water, it's basically liquid energy. I imagine the bugs crawl down here to recharge, like their own creepy little spa day. To recreate the Slurpy lake, we are going to use liquid clay later on. The clay color underneath the liquid clay is going to be a mixture of this bright blue plus a tiny bit of turquoise. Those huge sandstone towers in the Hive always remind me of the termite buildings, except built by Fortnite bugs on a much larger scale. They look like alien skyscrapers reaching up into the sky with cracks and tons of holes. Building them in clay is one of the hardest parts because we want them hollow inside. That way we can run a tiny tube through and connect it to our smoke machine. Just like in the game, we will see some beautiful fog, which will pour out of the towers, making them look alive, like they're exhaling. We are now adding tiny holes, the tunnels where the bug queen is appearing. And hidden under a tree we find what looks like a bug shrine. A tall stone with glowing cracks, surrounded by 4 smaller rocks. Wait a second, why is there a spider on my crafting table? I think the bug invasion is getting a little too real. First, we are creating the bomber bugs. They are chunky, they are big on the map. When they explode, it's all purple slime everywhere. So I'm including this with purple clay, of course. I'm keeping these small for now, but maybe next time I'll make a giant one with real slime inside. What would you think about that? Now the swarmer bugs. They are tiny, everywhere on the ground, super easy to kill, but also super annoying. Classic swarm enemies. Next up are the hive nests, these huge glowing bug structures you find all over the hive. To recreate them, we need dozens of tiny little dots. Each of those will become the glowing infection bubbles that sit on the nests. It's a bit of a grind, but in the end it looks so close to the real thing, which we are now placing on the map. After oven hardening, we're going to add some slime. Now it's time for some serious tree mass production. And we start with the classic broadleaf trees. We were cutting thin wooden sticks for the trunks, stain them darker with my Copic marker. Instead of making hundreds of tiny leaves, we are using a rough stone texture to press the details into the clay. Look how beautiful this looks. Now when we put it onto the trunks, we can start the mass production quite quickly. Then we are switching to pine trees. These are a bit trickier at first, because the layers of branches have to look natural and really thick. In Fortnite, pine trees have usually They are taller and give you a narrow profile when hiding. And that's a huge difference for gameplay. Let's say hiding behind a pine tree feels completely different than behind a broad tree. The last group are my tiny wire trees. We are twisting the wire for the trunks, then add little clay clusters as leaves. These stand out visually because, well, they look awesome. It's fascinating how everyday objects can help to create beautiful imprints and textures on trees, for example. In Fortnite, trees aren't just decoration, they matter a lot for gameplay. And I remember the reality tree, which basically told an entire chapter story, if you remember. When placing our trees, it's not random. Each type has its own place. Broadleaves trees are perfect for cover. Pine trees add verticality and that forest vibe, and the twisted wire trees feel alien, which fits the hive theme. This is not a tree, but we add it anyways. And to finish the vegetation crafting, we add this little shrub. It kind of looks like an aloe plant. Not everything in the hive is bug-made. The most obvious ones, the huge copper pipes. Some are cracked open, leaking slurp straight into the hive, and that's probably how the bugs got so powerful in the first place. And then there is the street. With a very thin layer of stormy gray, we can easily create it. On this map location, it feels like the human-made details are so small compared to the giant bug towers, but this also tells a story. This place once was a normal place before the hive took over. As the clay is still soft, we can just stick in the pipes. And it's actually the last working step before we put everything into the oven. This is huge because after that we won't be able to change anything. Okay, this tree is falling over, but it belongs right there and we are ready to go into the oven. This is a freshly baked hive. We are now painting the tiny white stripes on the street and then switching over to liquid clay. For the final touch, I'm covering the lake and even parts of the bug towers with liquid clay. At first it just looks like slime, dripping everywhere, thick. It gets transparent after oven hardening, but this clay has a secret. Once it is baked, it not only turns transparent, when you hit it with an UV light, it starts glowing, just like in Fortnite. It's time to bring Hive to life with smoke. We start by connecting the fog machine to a system of tubes. We use this bigger connection tube, which will go right into the smoke machine, and then some straws, which will lead right under the map. Next, we are drilling holes into the hive map. First into the tops of the big termite-like towers, and then from underneath the base plate. That way we can feed the tubes through the entire structure. These very thin silicon tubings, only 2 mm thick, work perfect for that. And they go right into the clay. And now for the smoke test, let's attach the tubes to the smoke machine. I make sure that all the attachments of the pipes get taped tightly, so the smoke has only one way to travel. And look at that! It works! It just looks like in Fortnite. The hive looks alive. This is an easy task. We're just placing the bugs onto the map. Nothing can go wrong now.
Ow!
Huh. My blood has the exact same color as the eyes of the bugs. I've made 3 crawlers for the ground. They hide in the cracks, right next to the nests, and wait for anyone who comes too close. Creepy little campers. And then we have the 3 flying bugs. I'm placing them higher with the help of some fiberglass around the edges of the map, like they're patrolling the sky. And together with the crawlers, the flyers make the hive feel dangerous. Well, I could have created 100 more of these, and the scale also is a little bit broken.
Oi.
But still, it comes alive, and I really love the look, and it becomes vivid. Now with this acrylic paint, we can make this characteristic bright blue feet, and adding some slime for the nests with transparent polish. Maybe we place this bug right here. Another one is going through this crack right next to the nest. And guys, that's it! We created the hive map, complete with smoking bug towers, bomber and swarmer bugs, the human pipes and streets, all the trees and vegetation, and even the tiniest peely. But where is he? There are so many bugs. We need someone to fight them. Peely, where are you? Looks like he wants to drop in right here from the battle bus. Let's see where he is going, where he is landing. Oh no. Who comes to rescue him? Megazord! Seems he's fighting with himself. Of course, the hand puppet! Who wins the final battle? Yes! Megazord takes down the queen! And Peely is alive. The hive is safe. And our build is complete. Guys, see you next week. Bye.